So here's the sequence of events. One, your mom and dad got married, typically in a church, or if they went to the city hall, they're still under a church-state contract, which is a spiritual contract. So any decisions and choices they make within that wedding or marriage or whatever the situation is owned by the state anyway, and it was given up spiritually by virtue of the license, the licentious definition. Basically, you're sexually and morally depraved piece of shit, criminal scum of the earth. So enjoy your licenses, you licentious bastards. Everything in the marriage is owned, right? That includes the kids. So that's why as soon as the kid pops out, whether you say, I don't want to register or not, kid, until you understand this concept, the kid's owned spiritually. And we take it one step further. By consent, we register the names, right? Because that's what you're supposed to do. And the hospitals go out of their way to help you fill out that paperwork because it's worth a couple of grand to them if they do, right? They get a bounty for bagging another slave. And it's a bounty. It's a headhunter fee. The headhunting starts really early, and they get the most innocuous people, nurses and doctors and everyone else. Doctors not so much. They've got a bit more know than most. But people that don't know any better, and they don't realize that they're, putting kids into servitude. And there's some documents that I have copies of a couple of them actually that came to me that weren't supposed to be released from hospitals. And I'm very grateful that the individual that got these was able to take photographs of them, because even the nurse said, I'm not supposed to show you these, but here, if you got a camera or something, take a picture of it, right? So they did, and I have them on my computer. Very interesting, the deed poll with the footprints and everything. It's pretty cool. Yeah, these are real things, people. They're spiritual contracts. And, of course, the whole idea of footprints on paper is to stop you, the child, from connecting with the earth first. They want you on paper. It's a contract, right? Just to verify that that footprint belongs to the child, and it's a spiritual contract. And it's a lot of hocus-pocus going on here. Quite the movie we've got going on. Okay, so names registered. Register, to rule the divine, feminine, creative, spiritual essence, all right? That's the esoteric nature of a birth registration. The physical is the piece of paper. The spiritual is the concept. And you've literally given up the child to the state, the parent, and they don't like it when you wake up. But what they will do is, in order to make sure that that child stays in bondage and stays a criminal, is they issue a birth certificate. When they do that, that's the long form, and the short form is also created. And alongside the short form is a bond, typically for $1 million, depending. They do grading of bonds. Typically in the U.S., if you're, say, a single mom, former drug user, potentially hooker, living in the ghetto, they prorate the bonds, by the way. That bond that gets issued isn't worth quite as much, you see, because they're basing that bond on future performance, right? That's why they're called performance bonds. Typically, on average, $1 million, and that is a spiritual contract. All the money is created from that bond, so all money that you carry around that you think is just, an exchange thing is literal flesh and soul of your fellow human beings. So every single dollar bill, let's say in the U.S., a U.S. $1 bill, if you broke that into 7.2 billion points of light, that's what it represents. So those that want the most money are telling me allegorically that they're the most cannibalistic, that they want to feed on the rest of humanity. And there it is, allegorically. So they send out the long form to mom and dad, and of course mom and dad, convinced that this is a good thing, keep that safe for you. It's a copy. It's never the original. The original's in Venice, Phoenician, get it? Okay, that's the blue sky bonds. Look it up. You'll see. I followed all these trails, and I had worked with a lot of beautiful people that were on different trails that, we got together and connected them all, and strictly under intuition. Okay, so in order to keep the child in constant aiding and abetting themselves into fraud, they use a name that isn't theirs. It was copyright. It says right on mine, copyright, crown copyright, so no problem. They can have that. I'm good. And that's what you got to do first. Now you've got to prove the intent, that there was intent to commit fraud against mom and dad, and of course you, or the child. I was a baby once too, right? So there was intent to commit fraud against me to keep me in ignorance so that I would be using this name illegally because it was owned by the crown copyright. It was given up freely. Mom and dad did it, and they got things like baby bonus and stuff like that. So the contract was complete on the first cash that was received or check that was cashed. That's a signed, sealed, done deal. So there you go, moms, with all your baby bonuses. That's just proof of you're eating your own child's flesh. Well done. Well done. I know. Hey, we did it. We know better now, though. For me, it was very simple. I had to come up with something that, one, everyone on the planet had in common. Two, we would take it from cradle to grave. And three, we'd fight to the death to protect it. And the only thing that fit that was, religions didn't work because there's lots of religions and color. Oh, that's different. Well, blood, yeah, that works. And that is another story, but it tied into the same thing. But the name was the only thing that resonated, the three things that I was looking for that had to be fulfilled. So here we are, we use a name, and of course, that's not owned by us, and every piece of identification that we ever had to get, passports, driver's license, whatever, they asked you for the birth certificate because they want you to commit the fraud. They want you to use a name that isn't yours. So you're actually dealing in a stolen identity. Now ask me if you go into court using that name if you're actually an honor or you're a fucking criminal. I'm going to let that sink in for a sec because there's a lot of criminals tuned in right now that weren't aware of it. But you're aware of it now. So let's change our intent. Well, I'm not a criminal. And, I know you're not. That's the big part of the joke. Of course you're not a criminal. But you've been spending a lifetime acting as one. You were dealing in a stolen identity. You're going out and creating all sorts of contracts, mortgages and loans and jobs and applications using a false identity. That's why they can take all your shit from you. Because it was never yours to begin with. You were buying stuff in a name that was owned by the Crown. You're using money that was created by the banks that's owned by the Crown. It's all Crown Corporation stuff. So the mofos I'm after are the ones that are running the board of directors of the Crown Corporation. Because there has to be an intent there. There has to be something physical, something spiritual behind that in order to make it real. Yeah, the corporations are all the illusion, right? And they've got everyone chasing their tails and chasing everyone else's tails to see how much skin they can take off their fellow man. And the bigger pile of skin you have, the more powerful you are, right? That's the whole thing of the keeping up with the Joneses. So that's the reason why I have such an aversion to money. But I also know that everything is good and evil. But I had to uncover all of this. And I've held this ground, and I will hold it up to the point where enough people get this concept and they start treating money, instead of worshiping it, they treat it with the reverence. So I'm hoping you're getting the picture here. If you're using the name, you're dealing in a stolen identity, and anything you buy with it is owned by the owner of the name, not you. So think of all the things that you've went out and purchased: cars, trucks, houses, businesses, furniture, paintings, whatever. If you used a credit card, even better, right? You're stealing. It's pretty cool. And you got all these groups, clear your credit card debt. You can't do that, not until you clear the family name. So it's a tricky little thing. But once you see it in its context, you get a better idea. And there was another comment regarding a seal, the seal that is on the birth certificates you'll always see and given under seal. Well, you see, that seal was given while being aided and abetted through deception and non-disclosure of those seeking the seal, so they came to the table with unclean hands and certainly not in good faith. A contract is not a contract without good faith. You cannot get into contract, physical or spiritual, with unclean hands. So that seal was broken upon the realization of the fraud. So all seals, this is the opening of the seventh seal, the God seal of you, to bring you back in, okay, into yourself, into your own Uranus, your own Christ, your own. You put your own crown on with this one. You're not wearing the Chronos one anymore. Okay, you're not trapped in that. So this is a very, very ethereal concept, and this is why I ask people just to sit and ponder, because it is nearly impossible to get people into this headspace while they're busy being distracted by the left brain. This is why you need the quiet time. Get deep, get dark, get quiet. The Sestui Kavi Trust was it was set up because everyone at that time was declared dead and remained so unless they came in and declared themselves to be living. And back in 1666, there wasn't a whole lot of literacy going on. The only ones that actually could read and write were the elites. So they knew what was going on, but nobody else did. But ignorance of the law is not a defense of, from, or by the law. Period. And you might think, well, that's kind of cruel. Well, yeah, it is. You're in the game. We're in a different time now. We're now, you see. So this is where we get a chance to, finally get rid of the demons within and the demons without, right? The demons without are using a name in complete fraud. Now, once you get that, here it is. Here's how you turn the tables on it. It's in I who shall not be named. Imagine you're a judge and someone walks in and they say, are you so-and-so? And I say, oh, wait a minute. Before you start assuming and presuming anything, or cockroach, let me share something with you. Is it the court's intent to aid and abet me into using a name that I know is not legally nor lawfully mine and is Crown copyrighted intellectual property as surrendered by the mother and father that gave birth to me? Is it the court's intent to aid and abet me into committing fraud by using such a thing? Have a nice day. That's the allegory of Jesus turning the tables over in the temple. The money lenders, the money changers, that's all you're dealing with in courts. It's just an extension of the banks, right? The bench means bank, right? It's really simple. Lose a name, win the game. Because when you lose the name, you actually can reclaim your spiritual path in it, your God essence. but you got to get this concept. It's as simple as saying, you know what, Kate, you got a point. I can see that. You're absolutely right. That's you letting go of it. Now it's yours again. If you love something, set it free. If it comes back, it's yours. Done. End of story. That's the intent. That's the power of you. There's no needing to fill out paperwork, this, that, and the other, because you've just changed your own paradigm. You've changed your way of thinking. You've set your own mind free. Or do you need somebody to give you a piece of paper that says, your mind is free now, please move along? See, that's not really a God act if that's the case, right? Because if you need permission, if you think you need rights and you think you need this and that and the other, you're still looking for permission outside of you. If I was God, and I am, is that what I would do? Or would I just simply be?